It is the voice of college football, plus or minus 3. Who will make the list in 2024? Welcome to the voice of college football, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you best discussion, debate, and analysis. All right, this is the plus or minus 3, courtesy the voice of college football. What is this? What is this, Mark? A new stat, a new trend? Yes. This is catching fire across the country. It is the new rage in college football. It's the voice of college football, plus or minus 3. We recognized several years ago that the preseason publications, Athlons, Street and Smiths, etc., they were being way too conservative with their predictions. They were basically adding a win or a loss, and that was pretty much the next year's prediction for the most part, except for the very obvious Colorado situation of 2022 going into 2023. Other than that, being way too conservative. And I thought, these predictions seem rather conservative. I'd like to know, how much is there a drastic change between one college football season and the next? Because the sport does seem kind of stale in regards to these are always the elite and on down the line. Well, you know what? The elites stay the same, basically. But everybody else, from about Team 10 through the rest of the country, there's a lot of volatility. And I routinely, and if you watch us on a regular basis here at the Voice of College Football and take part in the call-in shows, you know that I ask you all the time, how many teams do you think have a win total from one season to the next that goes up by at least 3 or down by at least 3? And there are currently 69 teams in the Power 5 plus Notre Dame. And you, like I would have done years ago, guess 6, 8, 10, 12 teams that have that kind of disparity. So think 6-6 team one year elevating to 9-3 or dropping to 3-9 at least. Think last season we had Colorado. The season before Coach Prime, they were 1-11. He elevates them to 4-8. That's a 3-game difference. On to the SEC in South Carolina. Shane Beamer's team was on the list last year. Unfortunately for them, after 8-4 the year before, they plummet to 5-7. Now do they get back on the list going 8-4? Always key in the SEC with 4 non-conference games. For the lesser teams in the SEC is, of course, feasting on inferior opponents. And for South Carolina, that's Old Dominion, that's Akron, that's Wofford. Win those 3 non-conference games, of course. So there's 3 to start. Now, they always play Clemson. Difficult assignment, and that's in Death Valley this year. But let's say 3 wins non-conference. They got to go then 5-3 in the SEC. Is it possible? Got to beat Kentucky. So that gets them to 5 wins. So getting to 8-4 is going to be extremely difficult for South Carolina, but I put them on the list since they were 8-4 2 years ago to bounce back to that level, but I just don't see it here for Shane Beamer and company. Who would have thought going into 2023 that Mizzou would be on this list? Eli Drinkwitz had a sub-500 record in Columbia before this magical season, finished off with a Cotton Bowl win against Ohio State to go 11-2. So Mizzou, we're looking for a downside from them. Of course, they can't make the list on the upside because they only lost 2 regular season games. So we're looking for 5 losses for Mizzou to go plus or minus 3. Well, look at the non-conference. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College. They're probably 3-0 there. And then they probably get to 4-0 against Vandy. So where are the 5 losses? Well, they got to lose to Texas A&M. They're probably a 4-0 non-conference team because they've got UMass on the road, an SEC team going to UMass. Interesting scheduling approach there. So Texas A&M a loss, Auburn a loss, Bama a loss, Oklahoma a loss, and then one of the last 3, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. That would get Mizzou to 5. Most likely they will be better than that. Brady Cook's back, quarterback Luther Burden and company. But it is a possibility, especially with that difficult middle stretch, Auburn, Bama, Oklahoma. and Mizzou would have to fall to 7-5 to make our plus or minus 3 list. Unless you've forgotten, Clark Lee is building the greatest program in college football. Well, that's what he told us at SEC Media Days. And I think he told us that after Vandy had that nice November in 2022. They beat Florida. They beat Kentucky. Well, they didn't beat anyone in the SEC last year at 0-8. But to make our list, they got to beat someone in conference. They got to go from 2-10 to 5-7. Not easy in Nashville against Virginia Tech out of the gate. Alcorn State's got to be a win. Georgia State, of course, and also the matchup against Ball State. So there's 3 wins. Should be 3 wins for Vandy right there. So they got to pick up 2 more in the SEC or win that game at home against Virginia Tech and then win only 1 game in the SEC, which most likely would either be at Kentucky or against South Carolina. I don't see it. I don't see 5 wins for this football team despite basically 3 wins out of conference. Vandy, though, Clark Lee, let's see if they can get to 5-7. A candidate in the SEC on the complete opposite end of the spectrum is, of course, Alabama without Nick Saban for the first time since 2006, with Kalen DeBoer, 11-1, winning the SEC last year. They would have to drop to 8-4 to make the plus or minus 3 list. Okay, where do they lose 4 games? Wisconsin on the road. Okay. Georgia, that's 2. Tennessee on the road, that's 3. And then any number of these other games. Mizzou, LSU on the road, Oklahoma, Auburn. Bama could go 8-4. I think they're probably better than that, but they could lose 4 football games. They have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 losable games on this schedule. If they lose 4 of the 7, they hit the list, plus or minus 3, Bama 8-4. Let's stay in the Iron Bowl and go to the plus side. Hugh Freeze first season, 6-6 in the regular season. So, you can look at this 2 ways. Are we looking at Auburn to go 3-9? Well, not with that non-conference schedule of Alabama, A&M, Cal, and New Mexico, and also Louisiana Monroe. Looking for Auburn to jump to 9-3. We know Hugh Freeze had those kind of seasons at Ole Miss. Well, he's got 4 non-conference wins. There we go. So then they only have to win 5 out of 8 in the SEC. They can beat Arkansas. They need to beat Arkansas if they're going to make this list. Kentucky, Vandy, Texas A&M, and another win, whether that's against Bama, Mizzou, probably not Georgia, maybe Oklahoma at home. Auburn gets to 5-3, got to sweep the non-conference, and that lands Auburn at 9-3, and they make the list. We like Mike Elko. We think he's going to do a heck of a job at Texas A&M, just like he did at Duke. But, man, this is a stretch, but I threw it on here. A&M 7-5 last year would have to make it to 10-2. Or you can look at the other way, 4-8, but we're going the positive route on this one. 10-2 for Texas A&M. They've got Notre Dame at home. They have to win the other non-conference games, of course. So 4-0 non-conference, and then they got to go 6-2 in the SEC. So they drop the LSU and Bama games. Oh, they don't have Bama this year. That's right. No more SEC Western Division, so I assumed that. But no Bama. They lose to LSU and they lose to Texas. And they win the rest of the games and go 10-2. Probably not going to happen. Just too many opportunities to trip up against Notre Dame, which is going to be a toss-up game, according to Vegas. Mizzou, and also Auburn on the road. So Texas A&M, not a good play here, but just thought I'd throw them out there as a plus or minus 3 possibility. Okay, this one's much more likely. New entry to the SEC, Oklahoma. They were on the list last year in a positive way. Brent Venables, 6-6 his first year in the regular season, jumped to 10-2. Now they would be going back the other way to 7-5. Does Oklahoma lose 5 games in the SEC? they probably go 3-0 out of the gate non-conference. They could lose to Tennessee at home or at Auburn, Texas. Let's say they lose 2 of those 3. Ole Miss could be a loss on the road. That's 4. Mizzou on the road, Bama, LSU. Look at all those games. I'm saying none of the games in the SEC are a gimme. Maybe South Carolina at home. But even with the 3-0 non-conference, take 4-0 because they've got Maine late in the season. Even at 4-0, they could go 7-5 with only a 3-5 conference record. It's that tough in the SEC for OU this season. New quarterback in Jackson Arnold. Sooners, do they hit the -3 here in 2024? Is Texas a candidate despite getting to the college football playoff, despite finally doing something on the national stage here in 2023 at 11-1? Does Texas fall back to 8-4? Well, they're now in the SEC, and they've got a trip to defending national champion Michigan. So that could be a loss. Oklahoma could be a loss. Georgia could be a loss. Let's say they win one of those games. They've got 2 losses at that point. And they could possibly lose to, let's say, a Kentucky and a Texas A&M. They've got a pretty light SEC schedule. There is no Bama. There is no LSU. So Texas is probably safe, but there are definitely 4-loss candidates there with Michigan, OU, Georgia, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. Texas, a candidate for the ±3, but not a likely one. So those are the candidates, and once again, it's the ±3 here at the Voice of College Football. Who are my selections? I like a 4-pack of Washington, 12-0 last year, got to drop to at least 9-3. Pitt, 3-9 last year, get back to bowl play at 6-6. Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, moving in from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, 3-9 last year. I think we can find them 6 wins right there. And also Washington State, the last team we looked at, again, a bit of a cheat there, 5-7 in the Pac-12, play that Mountain West schedule, so they should be able to get to 8 wins under Jake Dickert. Your candidates, we want to hear from you. Leave your comments down below. And, of course, lock it in right here at the Voice of College Football. Give us a like. Of course, sub it up. And we'll see you next time right here at the Voice of College Football.